Hello everyone and welcome to another video from Roman election forecasting. Today we're going to be going over the House in Alaska. Now Alaska has an interesting electoral system. They hold a nonpartisan primary so that means there's candidates of all parties and the top four are able to make it through this to the general election. Some people call this a jungle primary. And obviously if there are less than four people running, then there's less than four people on the ballot. Afterwards, the winner of the general election is chosen through ranked choice voting. So this is a system where people rank candidates in order of preference, and then the candidates who get the least votes are eliminated and votes are gradually reallocated based on preference. There's lots of guides on the internet about this if you want to learn more. And this voting system, at least in the state of Alaska, tends to favor much more moderate candidates, as we've seen in the 2022 midterms and in 2020. For instance, in the first round of voting in the U.S. House in 2022, the two Republicans, Palin and Begich, had combined over 50%, but once ranked choice voting took effect, Mary Peltola, a famous moderate Democrat from the state, was able to win with a comfortable 10-point lead because enough Begich voters preferred her to Palin. So that's just one example of how Democrat or independent candidates can win in Republican leaning seats in Alaska through this sort of voting method. But I think that's enough of an introduction. Without further ado, let's get into it. First, we're going to take a look at the first district, and this is a district with three candidates running: Jeremy Bynum, the Republican, and two Democratic-leaning independents, Grant Echohawk and Agnes Moran. Now, Trump won this seat by 17 points, but previously in 2022, a Democratic leaning incumbent Dan Ortiz was able to win by a little bit over 5%. But luckily for the Republicans, Ortiz is no longer running, and Bynum has a significant fundraising advantage. He's at 55,000 to the other candidates 9 and 16,000. Additionally, he received pretty much exactly 50% of the vote in the primary. And when you look at 2020 and 2022, Republicans tend to perform better in general elections in the state than they do in the primary. So that's a good sign for him. So because of partisanship and fundraising and the fact that he already got 50% of the vote in the primary, this is going to go likely for the Republicans. The only reason it's not safe is because it has shown that it is willing to elect independent candidates. Up next, we're going to be taking a look at the 6th district. This is a less Republican seat. It went to Trump by 7.3%, but in 2022, Sarah Vance, the incumbent Republican, was able to win it by a little bit more, by just over 8%. We have four candidates here: two Republicans, Vance and another one, along with two independents. Fundraising is quite competitive. Sarah Vance is at 22,000, whereas one of the independents, Brent Johnson, is at 20,000. There's a concern for the Republicans here, which is that they only got 48.6% combined in the primary. The independents got slightly more. Even so, Vance is the incumbent. She just has to win the Republican voters and pick off a little bit from Alana Griar, who is presumably going to be eliminated in the first or second round. So because of partisanship and incumbency, I'm still going to lean this race towards the Republicans, but it could definitely get more difficult for them. Up next, we have the 9th district. This should not be filled in already. This was a seat that went to Trump by 5 points, but the previous Democrat won it the previous Republican won it by 9 points, Laddie Shaw. However, Laddie Shaw is not running again, so the Republicans do not get that overperformer. Additionally, there's a strong independent here. We have Kai Holland running against 3 different Republicans. Now, the Republicans had a combined 59.7% of the vote in the primary, but the independent was the top vote getter. He got 40.3% on his own, and there's no clear front runner among the Republicans. He's also very competitive in fundraising. He's at 26,000 to 2 of the Republicans 25,000. Still, I think the independent candidate might just very narrowly lose here because when you look at his website, he's mostly just endorsed by unions and Planned Parenthood, so I think he's going to be coded as a Democrat. Additionally, when I was looking at these races in Alaska historically, for Democrats and independents to win, they need massive fundraising advantages. There were examples where Democrats were or independents were ahead in fundraising, but they still didn't win. So, because Holland does not buy enough in fundraising and because of the partisanship of this district, I'm going to tilt it towards the Republicans. Although I would not be shocked at all if Holland were able to pull it off. Up next, we're going to take a look at the 11th district. Now we're getting into the Anchorage area. This is a seat that Trump won by 10.8%, but it only went 1.6% for the Republican Julie Collume. And we're looking at a rematch of last time with the same candidate who made it very close, independent Walter Featherly, running again. Except this time, Featherly is even stronger in fundraising. Last time it was pretty close. He was only ahead by 18,000. This time, he's ahead by 73,000. When you take a look at the generic ballot, it doesn't look like partisanship is going to be that different from 2022. If anything, it's going to slightly favor the Democrats relative to that. So despite the partisanship of this district, I'm actually going to give it a narrow pickup for Featherly. It's a rematch of last time, which was super close, except this time he's absolutely dominating fundraising. Now we're going to be taking a look at the 13th district, another district in Anchorage. This is a seat that Trump barely won by 1.2, but the Democrat won it comfortably last time at just over 5%, and he is running again. He's been a member of the Alaska House from the Anchorage area from 2012, Andy Josephson, the Democrat. So he's an institution for this area. Last year, he had a $147,000 raise to get to this 5-point margin, but he's on track to hit that. He's at 90,000 right now. His opponent, meanwhile, raised 25,000 and she spent 22,000 already, so she's basically out of money. I think partisanship will keep this margin similar to how it was in 2022. It won't get into the double digits or anything like that. But Josephson just seems like an institution of the area, and he's doing quite well in fundraising. So I'm actually going to put this at likely for the Democrats. Now we're going to take a look at the 15th district. This is a district that Trump won by 7.3%, and the Republican just barely won it at 0.2%. But the Republican incumbent who was able to win no longer is running. So we have Mia Costello, a Republican. She got a slight majority in the primary, but last time Republicans had a greater combined percentage than she did, and they actually underperformed their primary results in this district. In terms of the Democrats running, we have 2 of them, but one of them, Denny Wells, is the same candidate who was able to make this race so close last time. He's also up over 13-1 in fundraising, 137,000 to 10,000. So Costello has experience as a former state representative. I think she'll make this close despite the fundraising gap. This is definitely a toss-up seat, but I think despite the partisanship, I'm actually going to tilt this in favor of Denny Wells, the Democrat here. Anchorage in general does not seem to be trending well for the Republicans, and his massive fundraising advantage as well as his ability to make it so close last time makes me believe he can win it this time. Now we're going to be taking a look at the 18th district. This is in north of Anchorage. We have the a rematch of last time, except this time the Democrat is now the incumbent because he unseated the previous Republican incumbent. We have the current Representative Cliff Grow, the Democrat, against David Nelson, the Republican. Grow dominated fundraising last time, and he was able to win by just under 4 points in a Trump +2 district. Proportionally, the gap is the same this time. Both candidates have less than they did in 2022, but Grow is dominating by the same proportion that he did last time. So I see no real reason for the result here to change. Looking at these seats, it seems like Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents are able to really overperform the federal presidential margin in a lot of these seats, as we've seen from the 2022 results, and I don't think it should be any different in this district in northern Anchorage. Now we're going to take a look at the 21st district. This is a seat that we're finally getting into a Biden winning seat. He won this by 1.5 points, and the Democratic incumbent Donna Mears was able to win it by slightly more. As we can see here, she won by just over 2 points. Mears is an incumbent. She's ahead in fundraising, 33,000 to 7,000. So that's a substantial gap, but not as much as we've seen for a lot of these candidates. Again, just looking at the trends for the area, the Democrats are definitely favored. She was able to win last time. I could lean this in her favor, but just because the partisanship is close and the result was still pretty close in 2022, I'll just tilt this in the Democrats' favor, but I expect Donna Mears, the incumbent, to hold on here. Now we're going to take a look at the 22nd district. This is a seat where actually Republicans overperformed. We had Biden winning by 4 points, but the Republican incumbent Stanley Wright won by just under 2 points. This is a rematch of 2022. So Stanley Wright, who won last time, he's running again. He was able to win despite a fundraising deficit of 35,000 to 91,000. But this time, when you look at the difference, it's even starker. That was less than a 3-to-1 advantage for the Democrat, whereas now we're at a 10-to-1 advantage. Ted Eschid, apologies for the pronunciation, is at 70,000 to Stanley Wright's 7,000. So because this is a presidential year, I think turnout and the results will be a bit closer to the actual federal margins in these cases, because you're not going to have dispersed turnout where certain areas just happen to have more people turning out for one party because turnout isn't as high. So because of that, because of Eschid's greater fundraising lead this time relative to last time, and the fact that he was able to get it within 2 points, as well as the trends in the Anchorage area, I'm actually going to tilt this seat in favor of the Democrats. I think it will very narrowly be a Democratic pickup. We're finally going to move away from the Anchorage area, going to Fairbanks, Alaska, where we have one competitive seat up here. This is a seat that Trump was able to win by 2%, but as you can see in a second, the incumbent Democrat here, Maxine Dibbert, with ranked choice voting, was able to win by 11 points. And in 2022, she wasn't even an incumbent. She actually defeated an incumbent. Now she's running as the incumbent. We've got a similar fundraising gap for the Democrats this time as compared to 2022. We're at 71,000 to 31,000, whereas before Dibbert cleared 100,000 and the Republican Bart LeBon was at 43,000. I don't really know about trends in the Fairbanks area, to be honest. Getting data in Alaska is quite difficult, so I'm not sure how it's going to trend. But with such a strong performance for Dibbert and the fact that this is a rematch and the fundraising doesn't look that different, I see no reason that this race is going to play out significantly differently from last time. Like I said about partisanship getting closer to approximating the presidential margins, I'm only going to put this at likely for her. I think it'll probably end up in the single digits instead of going all the way to the double digits. But regardless, I still think Dibbert is going to hold on to this seat in Fairbanks. Finally, we have these 2 seats left in northern, very rural Alaska. I believe there's a high Inuit population in some of these districts. First, we're going to take a look at the 39th district, where we have the Democrat incumbent Neil Foster running against Tyler Ivanov of the Alaskan Independence Party. Now, Biden absolutely romped in this seat. He got almost 23 points. But when you look at 2022, the seat was actually extremely close. Foster only beat the Independence Party candidate by 2.6%. And this is a rematch of last time. However, I I don't see Ivanov improving this time relative to last time, mainly because of presidential turnout. I would be shocked if we saw a 20-point gap again, and I don't expect the seat to significantly trend toward Trump. So I definitely think the margin will be close because it's a rematch from last time, and Ivanov was able to make it close despite having a poor primary performance and low fundraising last time. But his primary performance was even poorer this time. So I'm still going to lean it in favor of the Democrat. And finally, we have the 40th seat. This seat actually currently has an incumbent Republican. It previously was uncontested in 2022 and had an independent, but he retired, and Governor Dunleavy filled this seat with Thomas Baker, who is an undeclared Republican, although he is a Republican. This seat has been held for Democrats or an independent leaning Democrat for as long as I can remember. And when you look at the primary results, we have 2 Democrats and Thomas Baker, and Baker got third. He finished behind both Democrats. They were combined for 73.6% of the vote. Additionally, out of these 3 candidates, only one of them, Robin Burke, again, one of the Democrats, has a website and is significantly fundraising. So we see right-leaning candidates, as we just saw in the 39th district, they can do well despite poor fundraising and poor primary performances, but a combined 73.6% for the Democrats, I think that is just too much to bear. So for that reason, I'm going to make this likely in favor of the Democrats. So that leaves us with 19 Republicans, 5 independents, and 16 Democrats. Now, when you look at all these independents, virtually all of them, except this one in the 37th district, tend to lean towards Democrats. So this is effectively a 20-20 split for the state of Alaska. But realistically, because a lot of the candidates tend to be moderate, you're going to have to see a sort of coalition type politics take shape. So I think this result will be very interesting. You definitely see Democrats taking a lot of competitive seats here. It's cut off a little bit, but our final result is 1 likely, 1 lean, 1 tilt seat for the Republicans, 1 tilt seat for the independents, and then 3 likely, 2 lean, and 3 tilt seats for the Democrats. So the Democrats are winning a lot of competitive seats here. I could definitely see the Republicans picking 1 or 2 of these off and maintaining an outright majority. But right now, we're looking at a split verdict in Alaska. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me get my videos out to more people. And stay tuned for more content.